My family of alliances, the Blood family, has been betrayed by the Dragon family. This was, in my opinion, the most ironclad alliance that has probably ever been formed in the game Call of Dragons. And okay, I get the game has not been out very long, but stick around in this video for the full details, the details that I didn't even want to have to share. I didn't want to have to make this video, but my members want to know what the heck is going on, and I have kept the receipts, baby. So we're going to show you everything that took place in this great betrayal in one of the most clear and ironclad agreements that has been ever written in Call of Dragons history. Are you ready for some drama? Get out your popcorn, because this is a lot of drama. Hello, my friends, and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming. And as I said in the intro to this video, I really didn't want to have to make this video. People sometimes accuse me of stirring up drama to make content, but the opposite is true. I spent days, if not weeks, in conversations trying to avoid making this very video, trying to be a diplomat and solve these problems without having to actually share with the world the messy underbelly of what Dragon has done this season. And they won't even give an explanation of why they feel the way they feel. They're just sort of saying, you should know what's wrong. How could you not? Well, we don't know, and we tried to resolve it, and they're not giving us any information at all. So here we are. I'm going to present to you the Blood side of the story that is my family of alliances. And the context I want to give you here is that Server 32, which is the server we're from, is absurdly strong. Like, we have something like 100 plus players that have tier 5s in a world in which other servers have like 10 or 5 tier 5 players. Like, server 32 is insane. It's cracked. There are so many players in server 32 that are so high power. You basically have 2 kingdoms worth of players. Now, those players join one of 2 families. They either join the Blood family of alliances, which is my family of alliances, or they join the Dragon family of alliances, which is the group that we're talking about today that has betrayed us and refuses, by the way, to just tell us what's wrong so that we can actually try to resolve it. And I'll show you literally where they're like, you should just know. And we're like, we have no clue what you're talking about. So I have tried extensively to build and manage and create this great relationship because the vision that I shared with the Dragon family diplomats, which includes Sean Kai, who is the strongest player by power in our server, has a 600 million power account in 1960 and Rise of Kingdoms, who is, I believe, king of a kingdom, of one of the strongest kingdoms in the Chinese Rise of Kingdom servers. I have immense respect for Sean and always enjoyed all of my interactions with him. And I wish he were still playing because I haven't heard from him in over a month, and I would love to reconnect. I'm sure that he and I could solve these issues diplomatically, but I don't even know if he's still playing the game. So Sean and I brokered an agreement in the first season of Call of Dragons that would last for all future seasons. And the intention was to create a powerhouse, a superpower kingdom to unite the Blood and Dragon families so that we would have an international powerhouse force that 24/7 around the clock could push and fight, and also would allow us to have more relaxing lives so that we could fight more at our leisure instead of staying up for long nights because, the Blood family is primarily USA and Europe, and the Dragon family is primarily in China. But like, both of our families of alliances have players that are all around the world. Okay, and so we together believed we could build this amazing force. So let me show you the agreement that Sean and I brokered last season, because this is the thing that Dragon thinks that we broke, but we didn't. And I'll explain exactly why that is. Let's start by reviewing the agreement. Here we are in Discord with conversations that took place on May 1st of 2023. That was earlier this year, and honestly not that long ago. And we iterated many times, Sean and I, on what the final version of the messaging would be, and we even aligned on what each side was going to be sending to their teams. So I had visibility to what he was sending, he had visibility to what I was sending. There couldn't possibly be confusion about what was agreed upon, because both of us had reviewed each other's messages to announce to the world, here is how the blood and dragon families will work together. Now, there is some context in here that will be super, super relevant, and I do want to talk about that. But first, I'm just going to read through the agreement and maybe give you a little bit of the context as we go so that you can see what the agreement was. What are we even debating here, okay? So in the message that Sean sent to his family of alliances, he says, first of all, he says, congrats on the victory in Zone 2. I'd like to thank all who contributed. Congrats to both sides on a hard-fought battle. After discussion with the Blood family leadership, we've come to the following agreement. For the remaining of Season 1, for winning Zone 1 and 2, Dragon Family will be awarded the Dragon rewards in Zone 3. Dragon Family will not go into Blood Family's Zone 2 and starting zone, thus forfeiting any strategic advantage Dragon Family had for entering Zone 3, and the remaining of Zone 3 will be open for contest. For more clarification on what's on the line, please read below. Dragon Family will share 10% of the border and 10% of the end-of-season rewards with Blood Family. Both rewards increase to 35% if Blood Family wins in Zone 3, which, by the way, we did. And I'm going to give you context on this, right? But essentially, the Dragon Family had a really big strategic advantage. They could have pushed it into our Zone 2, and we were pretty worried what the consequences would be if they did that. Basically, in Season 1, Dragon Family relied heavily on their superpower whales, which they have, by the way, just higher power whales than almost anywhere you're going to find, that have maxed all the commanders, that have maxed all the artifacts, that are sitting at over 150 million power. Those players really carry the Dragon team. Not that the other players don't make great contributions, but at the very start of the game, I cannot overstate how powerful that was. And the reason Dragon wanted to make this agreement is because they saw how powerful we would become. And although we didn't have the same number of top-end players, we had a body of players that were going to push T5 very rapidly that they thought would overpower them in the long run, which is true and is what happened. It's why we won Zone 3. And so the reason that both sides wanted to broker this agreement, which I'm still getting to, is that they saw how powerful we would become. We saw how powerful they were right then and how much of a threat they were to our continued existence, so we brokered the agreement. From our perspective, this was a good deal. From their perspective, this was a good deal. But let's get to the actual meat of the deal, okay? So, for Season 2 and beyond, okay, both families share their roots in Server 32 and will be allies against other potential threats in other servers. So here's the agreement. This is the part you need to understand, okay? Now, Season 2 and beyond, I get that wording says Season 2 instead of Season 1+, which is technically what we're in now. But understand that we didn't know of 1+. At the time this agreement was brokered, 1+ wasn't a season designation. So for all intents and purposes, this applies to the current Season 1+ and future seasons, which is the following. There will be no invasion of each other's starting zones. And by the way, I have evidence that Dragon is, right now, organizing a takeover of our starting zones. Number 2, Zone 3 is open for contest for both families to battle out. The losing side gets 1/3 of the border and end-of-season rewards. The winning sides get 2/3 of the border and end-of-season rewards. That also applies for the territory in the zone. The losing side would get 1/3 of the territory in Zone 3. The winning side gets 2/3 of the territory. In the event that an outside threat is too great for both families, such that they have to focus most of its efforts against a common enemy, season and rewards will be rediscussed and be split more evenly. There it is. That's the agreement. We think it's important to develop a long-time relationship with the Blood family because both of our existence ensures that both sides are not bored with no one to fight, and also ensures that Server 32 will be the dominant server for future seasons to come. So from now on, please treat each other with respect. Toxic behavior toward our neighbor will not be tolerated. This is the final version. Thank you. And he says, we're announcing in 30 minutes. I say yes. We don't need to go into this conversation any further. But the point is, right over here is the agreement. This is what was agreed upon. Okay? Now, this is very important because there's several aspects of this agreement, but the reason it was so attractive is not only for the season we were in, as I was describing, both sides saw the benefit, but also for future seasons, it made us, safe together. We always had allies, and we were so strong, we could probably, even if a bunch of people teamed up against us, work together and push through it and potentially win, okay? So I thought that this was a really amazing agreement, and working with Sean to broker this agreement was amazing. And I just want to establish, in case this wasn't clear, I have deep respect for the Dragon family fighters and warriors. They're awesome, super active, very fun to fight against them. And the idea that, like, in a worst case, we can fight each other, and in a best case, we fight a bunch of external threats, was a really cool idea. This is, in my opinion, one of the most ironclad agreements that's been written in Call of Dragons history, in part because the history is not that long, but also in part because you've got two diplomats, that's me and Sean, who are both going to uphold our word and also are doing, I don't know, like we're making it all very public what's been agreed to, okay? So this is the agreement. Anything that's not here is implied. And anything that is implied, if there is a miscommunication, should be discussed. But that is exactly what the Dragon family did not do. But I'm not there yet, because you see there's more lore here that you need to know about. Because although Sean was really interested in this agreement, and a group of Dragon family members were interested in this agreement, there was another group of Dragon family members that were very opposed to making this agreement with us. They just wanted to run us into the ground, and they just wanted to conquer. And that group of people split off from the Dragon family. They joined their own sort of group and formed their own third party within Server 32. Okay? So there were the Blood family haters that made themselves separate and left Dragon family. I want you to remember this, because those Blood family haters can go on in this season to ultimately drive the Dragon family, I think, to sort of push to betray us, which is what has happened. Now let's get into what's happened this season. We're getting to like the starting line of the betrayal, and I know this takes a while, but the context really does matter. The first thing we need to talk about with what happened in this season is how it started, because this season did kick off with a bang. Because the Dragon family had 2 or so alliances, and we had, I think at the time, somewhere between 4 and 6 alliances worth of players. The Dragon family took 1 starting zone over here. We took 2 starting zones for the Blood family, which is something that in hindsight, I think we would only take 1. And we kind of forced the other 3 servers to all be in the Burning Lands, which kind of sucks. And again, in hindsight, I think we would, as a Blood family, only take 1 starting zone instead of the 2. But we offered the Burning Lands in like good faith. We were like, just take it. We're not going to fight you for it. And instead of just taking that agreement, they said, you know what, F it, we're going to invade your starting zone at the very start of the game. They tried to invade Sophrostia, and did so in a sort of underhanded way. I don't take it personally, right? But they faked going to one zone and then actually all went into Sophrostia. We end up beating them, so they all end up going to Burning Lands anyways. But I mention that because it starts to build a negative relationship with the other 3 servers that were in this map with us, because now they kind of don't like us, and it's understandable. I mean, like, they're 3 servers stuffed into 1 starting zone, and they got to figure out how to be allies and fight both Dragon family and Blood family, okay? So from here, the first fight that took place was in Calcha. Now remember, there was a group I told you that split off from the Dragon family. That's NK and NV. Those alliances joined the Burning Lands as well, because they weren't welcome with the Dragon family, and they wanted to do their own thing. So there's 4 servers worth of players in the Burning Lands. The 3 servers that, were merged with us, and also these 2 alliances. I think it started as 1, but also this sort of split off from the Dragon family, which included a bunch of T5s, were here as well. And so we fought them in Calcha, and we won. We beat them. The Blood family, without the help of the Dragon family, won against the 3 servers and also the Dragon family defectors. We beat them, took them to the passes. Now, at this point, the Dragon family had no fights, and they're sitting over here, I think in Zoland, and they're bored out of their minds. They're like, guys, please, we need a fight. We beg you. We need a fight so badly. We're bored out of our mind. We've done nothing for a month. We are so bored. People are going to quit. People are going to defect to the opposing side just so they can get fights. The Dragon family begged us to take a fight with them in Lorcan. Please, they pleaded. Now, the problem was that in order for the Blood family to actually get to Lorcan, we would have to make great sacrifices to our territory. Very great sacrifices to our territory in order to get people over there. Plus, we were very afraid that if we pulled out of Calcha, which is what they were asking us to do, then we would lose a lot of territory here. And that is exactly what happened because, of course, you always protect your allies. And so from our perspective, even though it put us at an extreme disadvantage for the rest of the season to make all this territory in a way that didn't make sense in order to get our fighting shells over to these passes to have a nice 2v2 fight, 2 alliances versus 2 alliances in Lorcan, we made these great sacrifices. We burned through all of our storehouse just to get over here. We didn't secure Calcha as much as we could have. We made these great sacrifices to do a Lorcan fight because who cares, man? Dragon families are allies. We love our dragon fam. We're going to win the season together, probably no matter what. That was the whole point of our initial agreement. Who cares if we weaken our position for fighting in Zone 3 and weaken our position for fighting in other zones? Our family is calling on us, and they need us, and they're bored. And so they want to fight. And Blood Family is not one to turn down a fight. So we're like, yeah, okay, we'll take this fight with you and Lorcan. Now, there were a couple other things that happened that made us take this fight. Because while this was happening, we were getting sort of winds that a bunch of people were potentially planning to leave Dragon and betray us to join the group in Burning Lands and fight us again in Calcha. So basically we'd be fighting a bunch of T5s from the Dragon family and all 3 other servers and the Dragon family original defectors, NK and NV, that I was describing to you earlier. That's a lot of people to fight. So Duz, who's our leader, got into a voice call with Sean. Remember, that's the guy who's the strongest player by power in our cluster of servers, the guy who I really loved negotiating with. And in his conversation with Sean promised that if these guys were to do that, if they were to defect and fight against us, that Sean would join the Blood family and he would bring with him his loyal warriors to help protect us against that group. And I thought that was really impressive, and that was all the evidence we needed that, like, okay, we can go into Lorcan, we're going to lose a bunch of territory in Calcha, but it's going to be fine. The Dragon family has our back, we have their back, and I have evidence of this conversation. I'm going to show with you a screenshot, or share with you a screenshot of the conversation, because although I don't have the voice call, I can show you that Duz, who's the leader of my family of alliances, Blood, was in a voice call with Sean. It lasted about 57 minutes, and Sean was like, as a showing of sort of good faith, here's my account credentials to log into my account. Now, logging into someone else's account is against terms of service, so he didn't do that. But the point is that Sean was saying with such confidence that he would support us and such a showing of good faith. He's like, here's my login, man. You could even log into my account. This is how serious I am that we're going to honor our agreement with you. Now, that was, by the way, the last I have heard from Sean. Also, another diplomat that I really loved talking to from the Dragon family quit. That's burning. And I think the reason he quit in part is because he felt like his word was going to be betrayed, which is what we're about to get to. And also a third diplomacy contact, Lev, who also was really great to work with, also quit. So around the time that this Lorcan fight starts, pretty much all the diplomatic representation from Dragon family evaporates, disappears, goes away. Now, this is important. So we take this fight in Lorcan, okay? And we win Lorcan. And we kind of win Lorcan by a landslide. 0 flags destroyed for us. We've got them all the way back to their passes. There's only 3 flags or so left for each of their sides. There's maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 for the top side, 3 or so for the bottom side. And there's one other piece of the puzzle here that I haven't even talked about. I told you this is complicated, which is that a part of the reason we agreed to go into Lorcan is that we asked the Dragon family to also get NK. That's the sort of, the NK NV group. That's the Dragon family defectors that had left them. We made a treaty with them too. And I'll put a picture up on the screen of that agreement where they said, we won't burn your territory for 4 days so that you can have a good fight with, the Dragon fam. You can heal your hospitals and you can come back and you'll have half the territory in Calcha. We'll have half the territory, and that we can duke it out. And what they agreed upon, by the way, was not to destroy a specific fort in Calcha. And if that fort were to come under attack, that would immediately end the exercise in Lorcan, because then we were in danger of losing so much territory in Calcha that it would be unrecoverable. Okay? So what do you think happens is, of course, that treaty was broken at the very earliest opportunity. So right when we've got Dragon Fam all the way almost pushed back to their passes, then NK breaks the treaty. They're attacking our fort in Calcha, disconnect literally all our territory in Calcha, and we say, okay, great exercise, Dragon Fam. We got to go back to Calcha. Thanks so much for the fun. Because NK/NV broke the agreement, we got to go back here and we got to fix our territory. In addition, multiple kingdoms made their way all the way up to this pass and into Hollandale while we were doing this fighting. So we were at a huge position disadvantage in Calcha now, okay? And all this context is super, super, super relevant, okay? So we're now at a catastrophic position disadvantage. We have 0 storehouse because we were just fighting dragon. We burned through all that. Our hospitals are all full because we had good fighting against the dragon family. And now we're in a pickle because we don't even have time to set up for zone 3, which, by the way, remember from the agreement, is going to determine who gets the majority of the dragon border, and also who gets the majority of the end of season rewards, right? So we're in a big pickle. And at this point, we haven't heard from Sean literally since Lorcan. I just assume he's busy with work and real life stuff, which is why he hasn't gotten back to us, because I found every interaction with him to be very honorable. So that promise that was made that Dragon Fam would come support us if we were betrayed didn't happen, because not only, by the way, was the agreement broken, but also Dragon Fam said, hey, by the way, all our T5 players are going to go fight over here in Calcha against you too. So a bunch of T5 players from Dragon went into Calcha as well. So now the nightmare scenario that we were most afraid of became a reality. We were fighting against all 4 servers worth of players, including everyone from server 32 that was not in the Blood Fam. They all joined into Burning Lands to fight us. So in Calcha, we really weren't able to make much progress. We were able to hold a little bit of territory by this river, but we didn't have the storehouse to prepare for Zone 3 and retake Calcha. So unfortunately, we couldn't push it all in Calcha. We moved into Hollandale to set up for Zone 3 entry. But even then, we were able to only set up in a super, super, super disadvantaged way because we didn't have a way to actually, with the time and flags remaining, because we took this fight in Lorcan, set up for a good entry into Zone 3. And at the end of the day, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? Like, Dragon Fam is ultimately our allies, right? At the end of the season, they're just going to split the rewards, so who cares? It's fine, right? Like, we're getting great fights. I love the fights. I'm very worried at this point that all 3 of our diplomats have disappeared or otherwise saying they're quitting or are quitting. And I just want to point out that while we were in Lorcan, because we didn't lose any flags and because we were burning a ton of flags in Lorcan, I just want to point out that Duz reached out to Dragon Family leadership and said, hey, you're going to have off-territory players. We don't particularly want to zero them. Like, what do you want us to do? And Dragon Family leadership, the diplomacy contact, said, just zero them. The resources are renewable. They should know to be on territory. And I'm paraphrasing, right? I could show the exact text, but like they had this conversation. And even I, looking back on this text, was like, are you sure that's what they meant? But at no point were they like, stop, what are you doing? You're zeroing our players. Why are you doing this? They didn't do that. So I assume Duz's interpretation was correct, that they gave permission to zero their players because they could have said like, hey, stop zeroing. What are you doing? And they didn't. Now we said, hey, Dragon Family, what are you doing? Stop zeroing our players at this point. Let me explain. So after we abandoned Lorcan, Dragon Family kept pushing. We told the diplomatic representation in Dragon Fam, the exercise is over. Stop attacking. We need to extract our players. We need to secure Calcha. We're going to lose Calcha. So thank you for the fight. This is over. We're going to Calcha now. See you later. And they kept pushing and zeroing players anyways. And we were like, what are you guys doing? We told you the exercise is over. We're not defending anymore. Yeah, people are supposed to leave. Yeah, it's on them that they're still on territory. But this was a surprising change of direction that a lot of people didn't expect. So what are you doing zeroing our players in Lorcan now? What a mess, okay? Let me show you that conversation. Okay, so here's the messaging. And I say, hey guys, what's going on? NK betrayed and we had to pull from the zone to deal with them. does inform your team we were officially pulling from the zone, and yet you're still charging forward and zeroing our players. Can you help me understand what you, as our allies, are doing while NK is fully betraying the non-attack agreement? And I say, just to be extremely clear, from my perspective, we went out of our way to do this skirmish under the agreement that NK would not push. You were responsible, which they were, for securing the non-aggression pact with them. NK supposedly agreed to a 4-day non-aggression pact. NK violated the non-aggression pact when they attacked our fort. Does it communicated that if this were to happen, we would pull from the fight with DNS, which is what we did. We pulled from the fight immediately with DNS. But I am watching you right now destroying our flags, and I assume zeroing our players without giving us time to extract our members. Can you help me understand why you're still attacking and not giving us an opportunity to extract our members before claiming your territory? Because, like, yeah, it's fine they can have Lorcan. It's not about the territory. It's about the agreement they made with us. And then I repeat myself and I say, from my perspective, we'd be in the best possible partners in this situation. We even let you bring 3 shells into the zone despite our understanding that it was a 2v2 fight, and we only brought 2 shells ourselves. Just to be extremely clear, you'll have to pardon my shock that you're currently not honoring your end of the bargain. When NK engaged, our skirmish ended. The progress as of that moment in time indicated we were the winners, and we should have had an opportunity to extract our members before you charged forward to claim the zone. But you're charging forward to claim the zone and zeroing our players, even though we've shifted to the NK front. And he says, hello, brother. Sorry for the late reply. We were in Roots of War. Holy cow, man. Yeah, that's important. But Does is nice. He says, hope you won. Yeah, ha, ha, ha. I really don't know what happened. Best we need to talk with DS and voice. They have R4 who can speak English. So, like, at this point, you can understand our frustration here as to, like, what the heck is going on over there? They're not honoring their end of the agreement for the fight in Lorcan, and this is devolving in the exact way that we were sort of afraid of. Let me jump back in game. So here we are back in game, and remember, at the start of the season, the Blood family is viewed as kind of having shoved 3 servers into Burning Lands. Well, of course, those guys are happy to ally with the Dragon family at this point, because that means it's the only way they can get out of the Burning Lands. And they don't want to ally with the Blood family because, well, we fought them in Calcha. We were the reason that they're in one zone and they perceive it instead of, having 2 starting zones for, the 3 servers. So, of course, they wanted to fight us, okay? Of course they wanted to fight us. So now Dragon family has sort of taken advantage of this situation to maximally put Blood family in a bad position, okay? Our territory is a disaster because we're stretched across way too many zones. We're going to have to free burn and free surrender Lorcan so we can actually fight in Calcha. But even though we feel very betrayed up to this point, we still believe that the agreement for the end of season that I showed you earlier is at play. Okay? And what I have subsequently come to learn is that it's not at play. But let me continue to explain what has happened. I recognize this is a long video and it just is going to be what it is. And this is a great betrayal, and a great betrayal deserves a great bit of explanation, right? So we battle in to Zone 3. And as I mentioned, we had to set up very suboptimally. We had to put our main shells up against the bottom pass, and we had to put our remaining 2 shells up against the top pass. So our strongest forces had to come through the south. Those shells had the best behemoths, had the most capacity for members. It is possible in hindsight that we should have done that differently and just put all our best players into the much weaker shells up top and tried to push from the top. Because what basically happened is that we pushed on through, and we got to this choke point. And this choke point is insane. In order to get 2 shells through this choke point, we had to build a fort around the corner and then push forward and then delete territory and let the other alliance build their flags up in this little ravine. And that's what we did. And in hindsight, I think there are ways we could have executed that might have been better. But we did it the way that we did. And I have no regrets about the push that we made. But ultimately, they were able to destroy our fort during like the small amount of time that we went to sleep. And when they destroyed our fort over here, it basically killed our ability to progress through this choke point. This choke point is insane. Last season, for whatever reason, there was like another way to get to the dragon over here. But now this pass has to be the dumbest, worst way to get to the dragon that you can imagine. And remember, at this point, the dragon family has allied literally everyone else on the map against Blood family. So the dragon family took literally every single player that is not in Blood as an ally to come and fight us. Totally insane. But we were up for the challenge and we were up for the fight. Blood is always down to fight, man. And the fighting was insanely fun. Don't get me wrong. And it really did take all of those players in all of those alliances in order to beat us in Atheran. And they did win. It took more than like a week to actually do, but they did beat us. Maybe it was like 5 days, right? We were getting progress and we were losing progress. We were getting progress. We were losing progress. But ultimately, we couldn't get through this choke. And at the end of the day, like, yeah, having hundreds more players turns out is a huge advantage. That's what they had. And they win Atheran. And at this point, I reach out to them to basically sue for peace. And I'm like, hey, good season, good fights. Let's talk about end of season rewards. And this is where things get really weird. It gets weird because they don't really talk to us. Remember, we went through 3 diplomacy contacts. There was Sean, who is amazing, upstanding, super honorable, but is ghosted. He's disappeared entirely. I assume he's just busy with work. I hope he'll come back and help make things right. There was Burning, who quit the game, who, by the way, my perspective on when diplomats who broker peace deals quit is that often it's because their team is going to break the deal. And it's so infuriating as a diplomat to work hard for a deal and then have your team break it. Okay. So he quit. And my reading into that is that if diplomats are quitting, this is bad. Lev, who was an amazing diplomat, also quit or said that they were going to be less active and were not the diplomatic representation. So in order to figure out like who even was the right point of contact at this point for Dragon, I had to go to the Alliance Power, go to the Dragon family, look on here and try to figure it out. Well, I couldn't figure out. So I reached out to several of the warriors from Dragon family, for whom I have great respect, by the way. I talked to King C. I had nothing but respect for the warriors of the Dragon family. This is a matter of diplomatic concern, obviously. And they're able to tell me that Max is the diplomat, that this over here is Max is the diplomat. So I reach out to Max, the diplomat, and I try to have a conversation. And it was so unproductive and it took so long to do. It's actually shocking. I am going to show you the entirety of the conversation because it was just so disappointing. So let me just go over here. Here is my conversation with Max, okay? I want you to note the timing of the conversation. On Tuesday, I message Max. I say, hi there. I've been trying to make a connection with the diplomacy leader for DNS. I was instructed to message you. Please contact me to discuss our path forward. I can be messaged in game, although Discord is of course best. My username is Chisgule on Discord. I get a 1-word response Tuesday night. Good. I say, hi there. I'm the diplomacy lead for Blood Family. Are you the diplomacy lead for Dragon? He says 1 word, yes. I say, it's very good to connect. You all have fought very well. We've been having a very hard time finding consistent diplomacy representation from Dragon. The last 3 diplomats all seem to have quit. I would like to discuss next steps for this season and honoring the agreement we put forth before the start of the season. And then Wednesday rolls around and I say, just following up, I'm very concerned that it's taking such a long time in order for discussion to begin. And he says, hello, sorry to reply to you just now. What is it about? So we're really not getting anywhere. This is very disappointing. But I figure maybe it's a translation issue. And I say, this is regarding the agreement we made before the season for how rewards will be distributed. And I share the picture that I shared with you that we looked at together for the agreement. And then Wednesday evening is starting to come around and I say, this communication process is taking too long. I mean this very respectfully, but we need a faster way to communicate. And I say, it's very confusing why your team is still attacking. We stopped fighting over 2 days ago. We're only defending, right? So from our perspective, the season's over. Good fighting, well fought. We're ready to split the territory. And Max says, sorry, I need to push out BDO because you guys keep attacking our farmers. I mean, fine, whatever. And he says, and BDO violated last season's agreement. I want to point out to you that this is the very first moment in time that Dragon Family has expressed to us from a diplomacy contact or otherwise that there was a violation of an agreement. And so then on Wednesday night, so it's been like 2 days at this point, I say, I don't understand, how did you view us as having broken the agreement? And if you had thought we had broken the agreement, why did no one at any time message us to clarify? I would recommend strongly that before you claim the Elite Dragon Raid border, that we sort out this confusion first. I would recommend stopping your attack entirely while we sort out what has happened. And he says, I added you on Discord. So it's now Thursday. So it's been multiple days. We're not even really at the starting line for where I would like this conversation to be yet. And on Thursday, he's like, I added you on Discord. DS has stopped attacking. I said, awesome. Let's discuss. I will look at Discord now. Is this you? And yes, he added me on Discord, but he didn't say anything. So then I say on Thursday night, would it help if I put together a summary of what has happened and how I think we can move forward? I'm preparing a document and hope that we can review it together. And the only reason I'm writing a document is because, like, the guy is not giving me any time. So the only way we're going to get anywhere is if I now have a one-sided conversation with myself, writing this all down to say, here's what I think happened, and here's how I think we should move forward, okay? And so I write this document, and I will share it with you, and we'll review it together, the juicy drama. And I say, please let me know if you have read these messages, okay? So this is yesterday. It's now Friday at the time of these messages, and I say it's urgent that you respond. Soon I will have to make a video explaining what is happening, and I would prefer that we resolve this together. So I try to explain, guys, you are going to look like bozos if I make a video about this, because this is so obviously one-sided, it's actually dumb. Because even if they're right, they're not taking the time to explain what the heck is going on. Now, I happen to know they're not right, but, like, this is a bad look for them, no matter how you slice it. So now let's go to the document where I explain in great detail, guys, what is going on over here? In fact, before I go to the document, I mean, at the end of the day, what I basically said is a summary of what's happened in this season. And also, what did I do? Well, I talked to great warriors from the dragon family, like King C, and I tried to understand what happened. And the best thing I could understand, by the way, of, like, what the heck happened is that they feel like we did recruiting that was against the agreement. But we have evidence that Dragon Family was recruiting too. So it must not be against the agreement. It's a hypocritical perspective, because how do we know Dragon Family was recruiting when we were recruiting? Because we recruited people who said they were actively being recruited by Dragon. Like, I have all the evidence that they were recruiting at the same time we were recruiting. And I don't even know if this is their official complaint, because they still won't tell me the official complaint. By the way, I have more conversation. I'll show it to you. So Dragon is accusing us of a crime that not only is there not a clause in the agreement that talks about recruiting, but also they themselves are guilty of. I mean, what the heck? Let me just jump to the conversation with Max, where he continued in Discord. Remember, it's like Friday at this point. It's been many days. I've been trying to have this conversation. I even spent hours of my time writing this into a document to try to explain the situation. And I say, is this Max of the Dragon Family? He says, yeah. And he says, hi, I've been trying to contact you for many days. It's been a full day since I last heard from you. Are you available to discuss what's been happening? And he says, sorry, I was sick, so I didn't see it in time. I mean, at this point, I can't tell if he's telling the truth or not. I'll assume best intention that he was sick. Even though, like, you need better diplomatic representation, to have a single point of failure is really bad. And I say, he says, no problem, I'm better now. So I say, did you have a chance to read the document I sent you? I tried to summarize all my thoughts that when you have a chance, you could at least see we've been trying to communicate for the last 3 days. And I say, just to make sure you have the document accessible, here's the link. We will look at this together. Then I say, are you still there? Because he's disappeared. He says, yes, I'm watching, but we'll need to consult with our whales and NK's whales. This is not something I can decide alone. And the BD agreement, and BD is against our agreement to some extent. And here is where I'm like, guys, what the hell is going on? No one can explain to us the way we're against the agreement. So I say, can you explain? Because from our perspective, we fully followed the agreement. And as specified in the document, if you had a complaint about recruiting, it is the role of the diplomats to solve these complaints. Yeah, guys, let's talk for a second, you and me, the chat. In diplomacy, when there's a confusion point, the role of the diplomats is to resolve the confusion, to talk about it, not to bottle it up like a bad girlfriend or boyfriend, right? Or significant other, and then hold you accountable and be frustrated and grudge you for a thing that it's like when a significant other is like, I'm mad at you and I'm not going to tell you why. What's going on here? Okay. And I say, we've received lots of evidence that Dragon Family was also recruiting. So you'll have to explain to me in more detail exactly how you think BD has violated the agreement so I can understand your perspective. And I have to keep asking questions because he's not responding. I say, do you have time to explain to me how Dragon feels we have violated the agreement? And then I say, Is there maybe someone you can add to the conversation who can make diplomacy a priority? We really need to get this conversation going. Max then says, I hope you will not deny that BD violated the agreement because it's very unreasonable. What BD did is visible to everyone, and denying this will make our conversation impossible. Playing dumb doesn't solve anything. It keeps the war going. Of course, if BD likes war, which we do, bro, then so much the better. So do we. And if BD likes, we can keep our war going until S2 is over. Like, guys, holy cow. Like, you've done something wrong, but we can't tell you what it is. That's what Dragon Family just did. Unbelievable. And Max says, and I need to reiterate that neither DS nor BD violates the agreement if they both violate the agreement at the same time. That's actually, strictly speaking, untrue. He then says, in this case, both parties violate the agreement, but the one who violates the agreement first is the sinner. But you just said violates at both at the same time. There's no first if you just said both at the same time. This is so dumb. I can hardly contain my frustration with how this conversation is going. And I say, Max, you have not answered the question of how BD has violated the agreement. Can you please explain how BD violated the agreement? We still have absolutely no official statement from Dragon as to how BD violated the agreement. Please do not be cryptic. I am coming to you in open and honest conversation to understand what has happened. But you need to actually say what has happened because we do not know what you're talking about. I will not take your comment, playing dumb doesn't solve anything personally, but will remind you that I am coming with fully open and honest intentions. To be clear, BD does not understand what Dragon thinks BD did wrong. And no one has approached BD to express concern about the perceived wrongdoing. I have repeatedly asked for this to be explained, and no one seems to be able to explain it. And I say to Max, now it's late at night for me. I will only be awake for another hour or two. Please respond at your earliest opportunity. I gave him all night to say literally anything, and here we are with nothing. So from our perspective, Dragon Family has imagined a wrongdoing. They refuse to tell us what it is, but they're going to use this to wage war against us and claim that we've done wrong. Meanwhile, we have evidence that, by the way, this is evidence I can't share with you because it compromises our sources, that all of this is intentional. They are very much trying to betray us, and they are even going to try to invade our starting zones. So these guys are the most untrustworthy entity on the board. They have fully and completely betrayed us in a way that is the maximum possible damage they could inflict. And they betrayed us at the literal earliest opportunity of convenience for them, only after they knew they could secure the entire rest of the map to come support them. And they've done this through a misinformation campaign that somehow we violated the agreement when in fact we have not. And I actually feel bad for the other 3 servers that were jammed into the Burning Lands. Not only because they were jammed into the Burning Lands, but now they're allied with a group that, like, if you think Dragon is going to honor their agreement with you, you are hilarious. That is the funniest thing I have ever heard. We made the most ironclad agreement in the history of this game, or honestly, I mean, like, I'm not going to say any mobile game that I've ever played, but like, I feel like our agreement was super clear. And if there's something they feel we violated, someone, for crying out loud, needs to just tell us what the violation is so that we can actually talk about it. But we have inside sources that are telling us that's not what it is, that they wanted to do this anyways, and they wanted to betray us, and that they ultimately, the group who wanted to just crush us in season 1 is now the ones driving the agenda. And so they just want to break the agreement, crush us, and be the betrayers. And they're framing us as though we're the betrayers. And I feel bad for Dragon Family members who are buying into the rhetoric. That's why I wanted to share all the diplomacy conversations that were relevant here so that, like, we could talk about it. If there are other diplomacy conversations that happen between other people, I need to see what they are. Dragon needs to provide them. If they have any other evidence, I would love to see it. But again, we have these inside sources I don't want to compromise that have revealed to us this is all a part of a master plan to betray us. So this is also my official invitation, by the way. If you're in one of these 3 servers who has joined with the Dragon Family and you think you're going to be honored with a reward at the end of the season, I mean, maybe because I make this video and they're under the microscope, they might be more likely to honor that, so you're welcome. But they betrayed us at literally the very first opportunity of maximum punishment. And I mean, they're now framing it like we're the betrayers, which is so outrageous and hilarious that it's actually absurd. In fact, it's so absurd that I made this video. Not because I wanted to make a video about this. Remember, I gave the Dragon Family days to solve this problem, if not weeks, in a peaceful solution. I will share with you the document I sent to them. The link will be in the description of this video, where my proposal is basically like, hey guys, great fighting. We think you guys are great fighters. We appreciate you. Let's just do a 50-50 split of the Dragon Border, 50-50 split of the end of season rewards, cough up this sort of season to confusion about what the rules were, even though we feel like Blood Family's really been trying, but Dragon Family isn't at all communicating what happened from their perspective. And like, you guys can leave this situation without taking a reputation hit. But can you imagine pretending that you're an elite group and being a betrayer? Can you imagine that? Like, the Dragon Family thinks of themselves as elite, and I understand why. From a warrior perspective, they are. But if a kingdom that was Imperium in Rise of Kingdoms, that's like the top kingdoms by power, were to betray their allies at the first opportunity for maximum punishment, like the Dragon Family did, they'd be laughed out of the room. They'd be a joke. No one would ever take that kingdom or those leaders seriously ever again. Okay? And that's just Rise of Kingdoms, but this is Call of Dragons, okay? And I still think that honor and trust and diplomacy are really important here. But obviously, the Dragon Family has a different perspective on the value of that. So my hope in creating this video is that other people will perhaps value honesty and integrity and these same things in the way that I do. And I just want to reiterate that I have presented in this video the most complete information that I have visibility to. It's possible that I was in some other conversation and someone said something I didn't see. It's possible that I missed something, which is why I spent literally about a week trying to get someone to point out to me, what did I miss? Where did we go wrong? What did we do that you communicated and somehow we've missed it, other leaders have missed it, because we genuinely don't know. This situation is so disappointing, and at the same time, I'm having a very fun season. And again, for those of you jammed into the Burning Lands that think Dragon Family is going to give you a reward if you're in one of those alliances that is now allied with them, consider talking with the Blood Family about joining us, because, like, look, I mean, whatever you think you're going to get, whatever reward you think you're going to get, if they broke their agreement with us, I don't know why you think they're going to keep their agreement with you. I really don't. At the end of the last season, we beat Dragon Family in Zone 3. And as was the agreement, we gave them 1/3 of the Zone 3 area. We took 2/3 of the Zone 3 area. We let them hold the dragon for the entire rest of the season. We let them dictate who could be in the Dragon Border raid and who got the end of season rewards, and it was a split of our members and their members. We honored our agreement when we beat them, and at their first opportunity, they allied the whole map to beat us, and then now we're not honoring the agreement. I'm very disappointed, and it just is what it is. I've had great fighting, no complaints from that standpoint. Again, I want to reiterate, I have nothing but respect for the Dragon Family warriors. It's just the Dragon Family leadership and diplomacy that is just super disappointing at this moment in time. And hopefully Dragon Fam can get themselves sorted out. Again, if you're one of the players that joined Dragon Fam because you think you're going to get rewarded and that was your only way out of the Burning Lands, I'll ask you to reconsider. You might consider joining the Blood Fam for the remainder of the season. Yeah, I get that we have an uphill battle, but already several T5s have made their way over, and those are the ones that I don't think have even heard this full story and seen these full details, which is why making this video was so important. If you enjoyed the vid, do me the honor of throwing a like on here and consider subscribing. I want to reiterate that this video was something I didn't want to make. I recognize it's really, really, really long, but I didn't want to have to make this video. I tried to avoid this video. People always accuse me of just stirring up drama for content, but like, if I had wanted content, I would have streamed the fighting. But I took a page, actually several pages, so credit where credit is due here. I took several pages out of the book of Omniarch, who's a friend of mine and content creator for Rise of Kingdoms and has also done some Call of Dragons stuff, where he said two things that kind of stuck with me. One is, he doesn't stream his fighting because he just wants to enjoy the fighting and spend it with the team. And because my Call of Dragons streams generally get way less views than my Rise of Kingdoms streams, I was like, actually, I'm just going to be in voice and enjoy the team. And that's what I did for the fighting. So people accusing me of content, if I wanted content, I would have streamed the fighting. The second thing that Omniarch said that really kind of stuck with me is, if you're going to make claims, you better bring the receipts, which is why we've brought the receipts in this video. And again, there's more that I can't share because it compromises our sources. But I feel like we've given enough information here that it's pretty obvious for an outside observer to see that Blood Family has done everything we can to try to make the situation right, and Dragon Family refuses to even tell us what we've done. So, I mean, I think that reveals the sort of maturity level of the diplomats involved from their side, and hopefully they can get someone involved who, like when I negotiated with Sean, is able to help us both arrive at a great solution. It is what it is. I'm certainly disappointed with what they've sort of made as their choices, but I'm also in many ways unsurprised. Yikes. What a situation. More fighting to follow. This thing is going to open up at reset, just about reset, so should be a good time. I'll probably just enjoy it with the team rather than stream it. I might make a few highlights from it. And we'll see if we're able to hold Nuvola, the zone that they're going to be invading it, reset. Yikes. Until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.